This is how you come down. Another day. Another big day. I don't know what time we've been getting up at. I get up at 4:30 or something. And there's this one mountain. Well, hill mountain. And it has a big 6-point mature bull elk on it. Younger 5-point. Who knows who else. And there's not that many cows. There's a handful of cows up there. And it's hard trying to figure out which approach to take to get up the mountain to get to them. It's a long hike, and it's a long quad ride through a lot of quad trails and tangled up crap and regrowth like this stuff. It's a big effort. And then we finally got up there with the perfect approach. The wind in our face went right through all their little bedroom trails going up to the top of the mountain. Had a bunch of range cattle invaded the whole slope. And we're spooking ahead of us and causing little stampedes and racket everywhere. It's like, come on, you gotta be kidding me. But we don't quit. It'll happen. So we're going to try a different approach up the mountain from the other backside tomorrow morning. In the meantime, we're by another spot. There's a water drain, a water drinking area that all sorts of games have been hitting. And we keep going back in there later in the day to check on the trail cameras in there and see who may be in there or may not be in there. So, Sarah's going to have a little bit of a nap, well deserved. I can't really nap in the daytime, so I'm going to do this. And also, I might show you this for a quick minute. We also we keep seeing huge hornets' nests in the branches of the trees. The word in the street from northern Alberta, midway up Alberta and BC, the yellow jackets, hornets, wasps, they've been absolutely crazy. I've never seen anything like it in my life. Almost had to have a beekeeper's suit on to butcher up that elk that we shot a couple weeks back. But anyway, we saw this wasp nest molded around this young aspen tree on the top of the mountain. And it looked vacant. So we thought, man, that would look so cool to bring it home whole and get it in the man cave. Bit of a task. So what did I do? I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. And Sarah flashed up the GoPro, recorded me cutting this thing down. And I did it. It's perfect. And then I had to pack it down the mountain without destroying it. And while we're doing that, I think what happens, she said all the worker wasps die off. And the queen stays alive in the nest. And if she's lucky enough, because I'm not sure what species of bird it is, but a species of bird absolutely shreds these wasp nests apart and eats everything in them. Seeing a lot of that. So we thought it was vacant. We're tapping it around. I'm bending the tree and I'm cutting the tree down. Nothing. Then all of a sudden this great big thing comes flying out of it. Like, holy shit. And then I got some leaves and I looked inside the hole and I thought I saw another one moving, going across in the doorway. I'm like, uh-oh. So I plugged it up with a bunch of grass and leaves and jammed it in the hole. We'll have to figure out how to deal with that thing once we get home. But I managed to get that sucker all the way off the mountain through all the thick tangle. And then on the quad, doubling Sarah, steering with one hand, had the branch and weaving in and out. And I made it back to the truck and the thing's perfect. Anyway, here, I'll show that video I'll show that video clip right now. So what do you do when you're a 2-hour hike up a mountain? Take that home and try to get home in one piece. Not one dent, not one scratch. Off the mountain. Half an hour quad ride. What else? 2-day drive. See if we get this sucker back to the ranch in one piece. So there you go. That'll be an addition to the man cave once we get home. Now, I've been going through my notes and finding all sorts of emails that are marked not read. Sometimes it's a screw up, sometimes it isn't, but if you haven't been here long, my old phone had 2,500 emails taken from my inbox and put into my folder on my iPhone. And then the iPhone screwed up, got busted, and I lost them all. But I still have them in the inbox in my mail. So now I don't know, because once I copy them from my inbox, it looks like they're read. So there's a handful that are mixed up, so sometimes we're going to listen to the same email. Oh well. At least it's free, right? Now this one, I don't know if I've read this or not. I've tried to glance through it. It's a long one, but I think it's very important for people to hear. It was originally sent in 2021. This is from the Owl Man, who has been a very generous contributor here for a handful of years. So, listen to this. Hello, Steve. I thought I would give you a follow-up to some of your questions. I'm in no way trying to promote myself or steal your thunder. Your heart's in the right place. You want to help people deal with a life-changing event that can cripple their lives and ruin the things they love the most, the outdoors. The dialogue you have opened here is perfect for doing this. It is my hope everyone who hears the things you read files some of it in the back of their minds, no matter how insane it sounds. Let us be honest. A lot of these things we hear about these beings sounds absolutely crazy. That's the best part of this. You do not have to accept anything anyone says. Just listen with an open mind and heart and file it away. You may need that information somewhere down the road. Right? Like I've mentioned before, if you could communicate with these beings, what would you ask them? And what would they tell you? For the sake of argument, let's say I have had the privilege to do that over the course of several years. I do not expect anyone to take my word for it, let alone believe me. So just humor an old fool and joke about it if it makes someone smile. I'm a person like you, 56 years old, North American, whose curiosity got the best of him back in the year 2000 after experiencing something odd in the state of Florida. I don't like being perplexed, confused, and left scratching my head over something I want to know the truth. Sometimes finding the truth takes some work, even if you don't like it once you find it. So here I am, 21 years after my event, and to quote a friend, quote, more answers just lead to more questions, end quote. So here it goes. Once I discovered these beings were a people, group onto themselves, I realized they have to have language. Where you have language, you have culture. Where there is culture, there is a belief system. The whole concept of the word people means personality. A people means personhood, and all that goes with it. Once the whole mind-speaking thing became real to me, I wanted to know who they are as a people. I do not publicly throw this out for mass consumption, but I think your audience deserves to know some things. Please keep in mind these beings could be lying to me. They could be trying to trick me. They can also be telling me the truth from their perspective, not ours. They do speak, and I find their voice more intimidating than their appearance. Think of John Belushi doing Samurai Warrior on old SNL on steroids. It is not unusual for them to send a mental picture or image to convey a thought that they can't express in words. They know basic languages that they hear spoken by us. If it's mostly English, they know English. If they live where they hear French, they will be able to understand French, Spanish, Native American. It all depends on exposure to us and how much. Ones who live in urban areas have a greater understanding of that language. The other thing is if they communicate with one of us, their ability to use more grammar and syntax will improve via mind speak. These beings have a name they call themselves by, and it's nothing weird or strange. I'm sorry, I won't divulge that because it is a litmus test for me to test others who can communicate with them. I don't want it widespread knowledge to be used for hoaxing. We call ourselves human. They have a much simpler definition for who they are. And we call ourselves that too. Hope this makes sense. They all have individual names. Each one has a name given to it by their parents, just like us. To make it more confusing, they will choose a name they like to call themselves by, and there will be a third name that is only used between mates, kind of like calling your wife sweetie. That third name is only used between a mated couple. They live in nuclear families, one male, one female, and typically two youngsters. One generally older than the other, meaning one sibling will be much larger than the younger. Picture teen and toddler. The number of young may vary region to region based on the environmental carrying capacity. They can't explain that term, but they know how to live it. You once remarked on people calling them the keepers of the forest, of the guardians of the forest. This is true for them, but it's not what we humans think it is. For instance, they would love to have feral hogs running around as a food source and would welcome it. They would never destroy thickets of Japanese honeysuckle or cuds because it gives them cover. We would want to keep invasives out of an ecosystem. They are keepers and guardians of other things we don't know about that tend to show up in wild places away from people. They do manage food sources in the sense that they will never outstrip their food supply. If they notice that the squirrel population is low, they will not hunt and eat them until their numbers recover. I hope that answers one thing for you. They live in neighborhoods, for lack of a better term. Imagine a more rural community with neighbors spaced out rather than a tribe living communally. But they are still one community. More like Amish, if I can use as a human example. In this community, they will have a leader who makes the rules they all have to live by. Their leaders have to be able to do all the weird stuff attributed to them. All those supernatural things you hear about them have to exist in their leaders for the protection of their entire community. Like I said, not all of them can do weird stuff. Leadership is based on these skills and not family bloodlines. They are a patriarchal society. The males are typically the hunters and are always the protectors. This is why the vast majority of people see males. The females are typically never allowed to interact with us. Why? Because the males believe the females are too soft-hearted and emotional to deal with us. Basically, they get too emotional with us and can't make sound judgments in safety and security. One of the things I learned is they will be much more responsive to a man introducing his wife and or children to them than a woman alone, at least in a sense of communicating with them. They think women should be protected, and when we allow women to speak to them without a man introducing them, they will often not reply. They have their criminals and outcasts. Imagine how hunter and gatherers dealt with these in their society. They police themselves, and the number one rule is to not physically harm or kill us. This will get them the death penalty. If one is given that judgment, it is possible for him to go on the run as a fugitive. They call these individuals travelers. They can be dangerous, but doesn't mean they are killers, because their system is so harsh a simple thief may go on the run. People need to understand that their criminal element is not as widespread as ours. Once again, think Amish. Not a lot of Amish criminals in an Amish community. They thought of being alienated. They thought of being alienated from a community is not something they want. Sorry, I think you meant the thought of being alienated. We kill them. They have an oral history. We as people have always killed them. We've hunted them down in the past, calling them monsters, and we still do. Think about it. We were taught from a young age. Big, hairy monster. Notice it's not big, scaly monster or big, feathery monster. Remember, a Bugs Bunny cartoon where Bugs is running from a giant, red-haired monster with tennis shoes? I am told by them that, quote, we have people who show up with guns and flying things, end quote, and hunt them down from time to time. They have no idea how we govern ourselves. My guess, it is someone or some group in our government who is doing these things. If a single one of them is killed by us, the word eventually travels worldwide. They view us as very dangerous, which leads me to the next thing. Because of their fear of us, there is a schism within their culture and society. One half thinks of us as brothers and worthy of respect. The other half thinks we are worthless traitors to the Creator and not worth any respect. The ones who think we are worthless have a real shitty attitude towards us, and because of that, they tend to gather in regions of like-minded individuals. I've been told that the majority of them who live in the Rockies and the western half of the United States have this view. They will be deceivers, mockers, and outright standoffish at best. Also remember, as individuals with different experiences, they can have an attitude towards us. The portal thing. They don't call these things portals. They have another word for it. You have to be trained to open and close these and to travel through them. They are dangerous, and you can end up in horrible places if you can't navigate through them. The vast majority of them will not travel this way because of this, but the travelers will. Because travelers do this so much, they are seen as being hardened individuals who are fearless. This is why they say to be wary of the travelers. Their relationship with so-called aliens, they hate them. They are not friends and buddies. They hate them for the same reason we do. Yeah, it sounds crazy, I know. Being able to see through the eyes of another, I know you wanted more info on that. I know what you speak of with various birds begging for food and such with people. Some seem to have the ability to tap into the visual part of another animal's brain and see what it sees. They use this to see potential threats. They can do this to people, and if it happens to you, we'll know it. I witnessed this firsthand, and it was a surprise to me and the person it happened to. They are not supposed to do that to use it against the rules. They are supposed to ask if they can. You have to give permission. I mentioned they do this to birds of prey because of the visual acuity they have, especially owls because of their night vision. They also told me owls are soft, meaning it is very easy to do this to them. Owls are actually not very intelligent despite being attributed to wisdom. Maybe intelligence is the other factor to doing this, I do not know. I will close in saying this. They are not the sum of all wisdom and keepers of hidden knowledge. They are not New Age gurus who have the knowledge to save the universe. They don't even know the world is round. Uh-oh, you didn't just say that out loud, did you? They are very curious about us and how we live. They pass stories around about us, and because of that, they watch us from a distance. Oops. Sorry. They love looking in windows because they are just trying to satisfy all the things they are told about us. They have strange ideas about us because of what they see. Try to look at it like this. They do not see themselves as naked. They are covered in hair. That is clothing to them. They see us as naked, and that's why we have to wear clothing. They know we have weak senses, are unobservant, and are creatures of habit. They think we are highly predictable, and we sure are, especially in their environment. Yeah, we are. They tend not to mind sharing their homes during the day. It's when we go out at night when they get pissed off. To them, that's their time, not ours. They are cultural anthropologists' dreams. I'll tell you that. I am friends with 2 different groups and 1 isolated family. They are very reluctant to share information with us unless you have established a trusting relationship with them. It's funny. When they do not want to answer a question posed to them, they will either not say a word or say, "We are not allowed to say." I discovered a single family with no ties to any leadership is more willing to divulge things about them as a people. They do not like getting blamed for disappearances and deaths of our people. They will sternly say it's not us. That could be a lie, who knows? I know they are proud. Man, they are very proud as a people. They really do not want to tell you about the other things lurking in the wild places. It's against the rules. Take from this what you will. I am sure most will think it's nonsense, and I do not blame them. Call me arrogant, limelight stealer, or whatever name you choose. This information may help someone who has them around their homes. If they are killing livestock and blatantly terrorizing someone, you may need to find someone who can communicate with them and find out how to fix the problem instead of having to move away. Banging on the house, climbing on the roof, Peeping in windows, turning door handles is not terrorizing to them. Raping horses, killing the livestock, leaving your dog they tore in half on your doorstep is terrorizing and needs to be addressed quickly. I really recommend this book, The Locals by Tom Powell. I read that book before all the weirdness entered my life. The author of that book covers the entire spectrum of this subject. All the weird stuff I thought was bullshit, but when it began to happen, I went back to that book and reread it. As far as I can say, that book will give you a start in trying to grasp this whole topic. Steve, I live a normal life and I have a family that is more than well versed in dealing with them. We go out and enjoy wild places, even in the dark, with no fear or handicaps. They have showed up at my home before. We have lots of bugs flipping around. Sorry. We have a much more amazing world than we have been led to believe. And yes, our governments are lying to us. I just want people to understand that they are not monsters. If possible, it is really easy to work out a situation where there's a conflict with us. Remember, they are the ones who see us as monsters. Once again, do not take my words as a living truth. The words coming from their minds could all be lies and deceit. I give them the benefit of the doubt because we humans are pretty damn horrible to each other, let alone others who don't look quite like us. You keep doing what you're doing and encourage all those who are suffering from PTSD. I really hope some of those people glean something from the words you have just read. Sincerely, the Owl Man. There you go, you guys. March 28, 2021. Take from it what you will or leave it. There's a lot there, a lot to wrap your bean around. I've talked to quite a few people who have had communication with these people. But still, how many questions do we have, right? A shit pile. I won't even start right now, but I could probably tap in on that email for quite some time with a big discussion about it. A big one. One thing that every person I've spoken to who has had communication with these people says that they are deceitful. Every single person said that. And I understand why. I would be too. I am very deceitful when it comes to, when it comes to, you might think it's funny, but when it comes to me sharing where I hunt, even with friends, I tell everybody flat out, if I tell you where I'm hunting, or even if I tell you generally where I'm hunting, I'm lying to you. I just am. That's all there is to it. I got no other choice. When you work very, very hard and you have a place you think you consider very special, you have to lie. You tell one person, and I've proven this to myself I don't know how many times by trial and error. You tell somebody, you take somebody to a special place that you put a lot of time into finding and protecting, you take them there, and from what I've learned, every human being has another human being that they trust to tell. Look, don't say anything, but this is where he took me. It's happened a gazillion times. But I'm using it as an example of protecting what is dear to you. So, do I believe these people are deceitful because of they're trying to keep something special protected? Obviously. Right? That's what you do. You have to. You have to be deceitful. Right? Especially with humans. When it comes to protecting special things. Special to you. Here's another long one. Going in. My own experience. Hello, the first one to say that I love listening to you, reading the email sent to you by regular people who have had experiences of the unexplainable, and a lot of them sound believable, and some unbelievable. But I wouldn't say they're lying, or would call them a liar, as I too had my own experiences. And just another kooky guy who smoked a little too much of the green, LOL. But anyway, I will start by introducing myself. I am O.G. Cree from Northern Ontario, a reserve north of Red Lake, Ontario. I grew up raised with my grandparents and was always out on the land as a child with my grandparents. We would spend spring break up at our campground and stay until we were able to travel back to our reserve community by boat as we got there by snowmobiles. But one time, one summer, when we got to our camp, as we were still hauling our gear to the main cabin, my shoom/grandfather disappeared for a moment into the bush nearby, probably to take a whiz. But while he was in there, I heard like someone slapping a stick onto a tree, like loud snaps. And I thought it was my grandmother, and I had thought it was my grandfather, so I thought nothing of it. But when he came out from the direction where the snaps didn't come from. Still, I thought nothing of it, other than maybe he walked quite a ways away before coming out, and I still went to play in the woods as I normally would, with my slingshot in hand looking for grouse. I was like 10, 11 years old at that time. I never saw anything wandering around the woods as a child. I was never afraid, nor never felt that feeling of being watched. I never even ran into a bear like my older cousins would. And as I grew older, my shoom started to trust me and gave me his .22 caliber to use, and I would use it to shoot ducks swimming way out in the water by the mouth of the river. That was a hell of a shot. It surprised my shoom as I would make fluke headshots from that distance and never made a mess of the duck's meat. I would eventually go hunting alone using his boat and motor and guns. I would go way up into a river, Stain River, near the reservation of 211 SLO. I used to drive up the Stain River and stop at a little creek, Kakepetum Creek, Kakepetum Creek, and I would park the boat and walk up the little creek that led to Kakepetum Lake, but only went as far as the trail would let me, as it was an old trail used by the old ones in the past. I'd go in there in the spring to wait for duck and geese to land in the spring, but I would also go there during the fall to go moose calling when I was about 15 years old. I used to take a flashlight in the fall, as when moose calling you lose track of the time, hoping to hear that response from the moose, which never happened, LOL. But anyway, one time, the last time I went, I had forgotten to take my flashlight, and I didn't notice it until it got dark, and was ready to walk that trail back to the boat. Luckily, though, I was a smoker and had a lighter that I flicked constantly to make sure I didn't walk off the trail. It was that time, the first time, I had that eerie feeling of being watched, and I was getting a little spooked. I would make a noise as I walked, even coughing, so I would drown out any noises I might hear in the woods around me, as I felt something behind my right side. I even loaded my Shoom's 30-30, ready to shoot, but I wasn't expecting to shoot anything other than shooting into the bush or the air, just to spook off the bear or animal. And believe me, in the dark in the woods, even a mouse can make quite a rustle in its brush. But seriously, I had Bigfoot in my thoughts, and growing up, Bigfoot was never really talked about by my grandparents. All I ever heard was from one of my grandparents' brothers, who had said that if anyone ever saw a Bigfoot, to not bother saying anything about it, as nobody believed you anyway. And it was true, LOL. But as time went on, some other people in my community would mention that there was one Bigfoot who lived in Stain River, and have felt that feeling of it. I never heard of a smell coming off from it, nor did I smell it too when I was walking back that one night. But anyway, another experience was in the reserve. Again, I was 16 at the time. I was at home. It was the wee hours, and the sun was already shining, so that morning I decided that I would take a bike ride around the road of the community/reserve. But as I was biking, I had this sudden fear come over me, and I wondered what and why. So I turned my bike around and raced it back to my house. And as I got to our porch, I looked up the road to the opposite of where I came from, but would have come from that way if I had did that ride around. And I saw this big guy walking down the road, walking down the hill, and I kept yelling out this guy's name as I thought it was that guy I was thinking it was, but I noticed the arms were long, and it was all black and shiny as the sunlight hit it. I panicked. I ran into our house, And my mother happened to wake up, and she saw the fear in my face, and I pointed to the big window facing the direction of where I saw that thing, and we both looked, and it was gone. But there was another road that led off into the woods towards where the sewage lagoons were located. I slept in her room that morning, and when I woke up, I was still shook up about it. And my siblings and cousins were asking me about my experience, and that people went to check it out but found nothing. I guess my mother told... There's a couple typos. Sorry, you guys. I'm trying to make it smooth. There's typos. I guess my mother told what happened to me, told somebody what happened to me that morning. To this day, I can still see it walking down that hill with the long arms. Never had another experience after that, other than other people seeing footprints at campgrounds, footprints that stank. One set of footprints caught my attention as it was sunk deep into the ground. I had thought that maybe there was more than one, and that they stepped into the same tracks as the lead Sasquatch, just my theory. So now fast forward. A few years ago, in our reserve, I was driving one night and I saw this thing in the middle of the road in a neighborhood. It was a severed dog's head. Crazy. I thought, wondering who would do such a thing. But when I brought it out to the public's attention, people were saying that dogs were going nuts around the same night, and said a bear was probably around. But a few days/nights later, me and my girlfriend were driving again one night, and again we both noticed something in the middle of the road, and I jokingly said, "Watch that be another dog's head." But we didn't stop this time because we had our little kids and my kids in the vehicle, and we didn't want to spook them any more than what we had seen earlier, the nights before, as we had the kids with us that time. We dropped them off at home, and we went back to check on that thing that was in the middle of the road. To our disgusting surprise, it was another dog's severed head. So I made a Facebook post about it, as I was concerned about a psychotic person running around killing dogs and cutting off their heads to leave for all to see. There was another person walking up to where we and he had a shovel. There was another person walking up to where we and he had a shovel and a plastic bag and was on his way back to clean up the road. I guess he saw it too and went home to get the items to clear off the road of the dog head. On my Facebook post, people were commenting and concerned as to who would do such a thing, and also that there was a bear sighting around the community that evening, so we downplayed it as a bear attack on a dog. But why leave the head? And we never saw the rest of the dog's bodies. There was 3 altogether. Anyway, while all this was happening is during the fall of 2019. That fall the weather was sort of eerie-like, mostly foggy and gloomy, not a very good feeling to it. To me, it felt like there was something lurking around, and dogs were barking, going nuts all over the reserve. And there was this wet dog smell that lingered, and everyone who had a nose noticed the smell, and we thought it was just the dogs in heat, packs fighting over females, but it wasn't. In just one area, it was everywhere. A group of dogs going nuts, barking and fighting something at one geographical area of the reserve, and at the same time in another area. And some dogs sounded like it was being tortured or something. It was eerie anyway. We kept our dogs inside that time, but sometimes they would run off to join other dogs. And there's this trail that cuts into the bush, a shortcut to my sister's area that we used even at nights. One night, one of the dogs didn't come home, so one of my sons went to my sister's area to check if our dog was over there, and sure enough, he was there with a bunch of other dogs. And my son had a difficult time getting our dog's attention, but what he said worried me, because he said the dogs would run into the bush barking, and they would all come running back out. He said it was like as if the dogs, were battling something, and the dogs would surround my son, all whimpering, looking toward the bush. It was so interesting for me that I was curious as to what was exciting the dogs and wanted to go check it out. Once I heard them barking, but no one wanted to come along with me, and I didn't want to go alone for obvious reasons, lol. Another thing that happened the same time was there were 3 sightings of weirdness, lol. First was a Facebook post of a local who posted asking if there were any night birds, like big birds. This one individual had noticed something fly by across the road above the tree line as he walked one night. A big bird, he said. Then there was another sighting, and this one's hard to believe because this person was intoxicated at that time, but didn't seem too fazed about it. One evening, this man and his father were cutting firewood down towards the sandpit road, and while he was cutting wood, his chainsaw ran out of gas, so he went to the skidoo and slid to gas up his chainsaw before it got too dark. And when he got to his machine, he noticed the gas tank wasn't there. So he looked ahead of himself, and in the tree line about 50 yards from where he was, he saw it. He said it was an ugly-looking thing with wings and chugging his gas. And when he was noticed, that thing climbed a tree really fast and stared at him and flew off. Then his dad came to the skidoo as he was done and ready to go home, and he asked where the gas tank was, and he tried to explain to him what he'd just seen. But he got shit for it because he was intoxicated and hallucinating, and was told, "That's why you shouldn't drink so much. Now you're seeing gargoyles." LOL. So he just shrugged it off as to what his dad said. If I saw that, I wouldn't be able to sleep. Another sighting was the same fall and same week. A young lady happened to go outside her house because there were so many dogs barking outside, and she went out to chase them away as the dogs were stirring the children awake. But what she saw baffled her. She said, quote, "There were dogs surrounding what I thought was another dog and barking and nipping at it. And it had a very strong smell to it, wet dog. And there was this thing in the middle of the dogs that was crouched in And there was this thing in the middle of the dogs that was crouched in a frog-like stance and would reach to a dog that got close to it by trying to grab it. I just ran back into the house when I seen it. I myself had to ask her personally what she saw that night." End of email. There you go. There's a whole bunch of holy cows in there, right? Absolutely appreciate it. I appreciate your time you just spent to write that out. Couple typos, no big deal. I'm not the smoothest reader anyway. I'm always grateful when people write in stories from the reservations. There's a lot of people out there that don't have too much respect for the other communities outside of the reservations, right? So a lot of stuff that goes on we don't really hear about. So I appreciate you big time for making that share, man. And if you're still here and you want to share some more, please do. Please do. There's a lot that goes on in your native communities, but there's a lot that goes on near any rural community. It doesn't matter what color your skin is, what race you are, it does not matter. Actually, it just doesn't matter in this channel, but when it comes to this topic, these people, these forest people, they don't treat anybody differently, that's for sure. We are all equal. One more. Another fairly lengthy one, but let's go for it. Numerous Colorado experiences. Hi, Steve. Feel free to share this if it helps. Maybe keep the name of the trailhead under wraps for hunting reasons. Haha. I started watching your channel long before you started talking Sasquatch. I just kind of stumbled on it, and being an avid outdoorsman and guide for a time, I could very much relate to your stories and found them truthful and intriguing. When you came forward about your sighting, I was blown away. You literally took a step in a direction that has been needed for far too long. What you've done is amazing. I live in Colorado, and have been hunting and fishing as long as I could walk. I've guided elk hunts and fly fishing for a short time. I spend a lot of time alone in very remote places, and have had very close encounters with every known animal in these parts. I would consider myself to be an experienced outdoorsman. Not much rattles me in the woods. I've been charged by numerous things from raccoons to black bears. I just have that luck. I've had several experiences and friends that have as well. I've always had an interest in the subject and thought there was more to it than we are told. For a time, I even wanted to seek these beings out, but not anymore. I apologize if this continues too long, but I have much to share and have held back for some time. My first experience, which I still question because it doesn't feel real. I lived in a small subdivision, maybe 30 homes and a fairly large lots. I lived there for 4 years and only talked to one neighbor one time to give you an idea of the surroundings. It was completely surrounded by wilderness area on all sides. I frequently had elk, deer, fox, and very real bear encounters. One which almost took my life. A story for another time. The point is, I have spent my entire life in the Rocky Mountains, hunting, fishing, and hiking. I know the animals very well. I eventually followed my dream and became a guide for a time. Anyway, I was home one night. I could see out my window into the forest watching TV. I love that. Every once in a while, I would gaze into the outdoors as it brought me peace. This night I looked out the window, a spot I'd looked at 1,000 times. I looked then back at the TV and something clicked in my brain. Something was different. I peered back out and I saw a massive figure standing in the tree line. It was on 2 feet but much too wide to be a person. Plus, no one in their right mind would be standing in my portion of forest at 10 o'clock at night. It was huge, tall, but the thing that memorized me was the width. I think he must have meant mesmerized. Anyways, sorry. Its shoulders were beyond what a person in football gear could be. As I looked at it, it slowly started swaying from side to side. I felt like it was a dream. It didn't feel real. It lasted what seemed like an eternity, but probably only 20 seconds. It disappeared as quickly as it made itself known. I loaded my 30-30 and kept it by my bed. I couldn't bring myself to go outside in the dark for months. I couldn't keep it to myself. It didn't seem real. And still not sure it is. I told my family about it at a Father's Day barbecue. They didn't criticize me. They know that I'm an experienced outdoorsman and not one to make up stories. They just believed me and moved on. Shortly after, a few weeks, I lost my dad in a plane crash. Sorry to hear that, man. It seemed from the moment I saw that thing, it was as if my entire life changed. I've heard these beings are a sign of bad things to come. Have you heard anything back to back this up? The odd time I heard about that in old folklore tales, but I don't believe that myself. From there, I decided to follow my dreams and worked my way into a guide position for elk and mule deer in northwestern Colorado. I had no fear to speak of. Losing my dad was a major blow for me, and I just went for whatever I wanted. No fear. Through this, I met some very knowledgeable and honest people, and this is where the story continues. Hunting archery one morning before work, I had something following me. I never saw it, but I could hear its steps. I was by myself and heard unmistakable steps matching mine, paralleling me. I could see lanes through the trees, but could never get eyes on what was making the sound. It sounded to be only 40 to 50 yards away. I walked, it walked. I stopped, it stopped. This happened a good 10 to 15 minutes. This is very thick timber covered in the beetle-killed trees and deadfall. No animal I know does this or has ever done this to me. I became very anxious. I didn't want to panic and run as I felt that would make the situation worse. I found a meadow, made my way to the middle, nocked an arrow, and got ready for whatever it was to hit the tree line. I waited for 30 minutes. Nothing. No noise of any animal of any kind. I just felt sick. I had a couple miles through the timber back to my truck. I figured I had no choice and kept going. I had no other problems, but just couldn't get to my truck fast enough. Strangely enough, a longtime friend and fellow guide shared a similar experience. Not in the same area, but very similar, and left him shaken. His experience was in the dark. Another longtime friend had a similar experience, which will tie into David Politis' case. Please leave the unit and trailhead out. I hunt unit blank when I draw, as do my friends who have hunted it for many years. This is the blank trailhead. There was recently a missing hiker case there. I know the area very well, and the spot his phone was discovered I have walked many times. A friend walking the same trail, the blank trail, was walking the 6-mile trail after dark to make it to Spike Camp for opening day elk. For approximately 3 to 4 miles up a steep incline in parts, he had something parallel him, walking when he walked, stopping when he stopped. He capped his muzzleloader in preparation for defense. It stopped following just shy of camp where the rest of the party was waiting at camp. No other problems occurred that trip that I'm aware of. I hunted this spot in 2020. It was opening weekend for the first few days of a 10-day trip. It was going well. Elk were plentiful. We were backpacked in 7 miles into the wilderness area. There are hikers there, but they rarely leave the trail, and the drainage we camp in, Woodland Lake, is the least popular. Needless to say, we don't see anyone to speak of after a couple of miles on the trail. After a couple of days and a few missed opportunities, we're all a little worn down. A large storm was forecasted to hit us that night. Interesting, from what David said. We decided to split up and hunt the evening and meet at camp at dark to decide what we were doing about the storm. I left camp, went a quarter mile or so, let a bugle rip, got a response. I determined the wind wasn't right and continued down the bench I was hunting for an elk in a better position. The area is healthy timber, thick, but clearings and abundant water, and most places you can easily see 100 to 200 yards in the trees. It's high elevation, very close to tree line. I hunted a while. I didn't hear another bugle, but worked through some meadows and eventually into the timber. And as I entered the timber, I felt an odd feeling, like, stop, I'm being watched. I felt anxious. I had a sidearm, but I left it in camp that night. I looked into the timber, and I feel I saw something about 100 yards squatting down looking at me. I stared at it. I stared. It looked like a large being. I look again, and it would appear as an odd stump. It's like nothing existed but me and it. I thought my mind was playing tricks on me, and maybe it was. It said in my mind, I mean no harm, I'm here for elk. For some reason I felt things had passed. I could no longer see what previously put me on edge. I was confused, but felt easy. Steve, from that moment on, I experienced some of the absolute amazing elk hunting of my entire life. I missed a chip shot at 30 yards. Misjudged yards. I then had no time to find my arrow before I was in the middle of a large herd. I called the herd bull, a big 6x6 to 35 yards. No shot I felt comfortable with in the timber. I left that night in disbelief. We decided the severity of the storm was enough, we should pull out. We left camp and hiked the 7 miles out in the dark as the storm began to hit, and I was certain my mind played tricks on me. Too much time in the woods, and possibly that was the case. A couple weeks later, in a last-ditch effort to fill my tag, I headed back in by myself as none of my friends could make it. I got to the trailhead a couple hours before sunrise, working up the trail in the dark, bugling once in a while, listening often for a bull to make a mistake. I worked up a large ridge just to the south of where we camped. It was a long hunt, but always holds elk and much wildlife. I hunted west up the ridge to the benches and the dark timber. Nothing, not even much of the normal small animals that usually reside there. I crossed to the north into the woodland, found my arrow from a miss a couple weeks earlier, and continued north into the Devil's Thumb drainage. Still nothing. Not a sound, just dead woods. It seemed strange, but from the night the storm hit, and I had the weird feeling every animal seemed to have cleared the area. I continued hunting, but everything just felt off. Not scary, just off. No life around. Twice I happened to glance to my side and saw limbs from a tree move. Nothing making sound, no running, couldn't see anything, but something with some size moved the branches. I gave it up, headed to the trailhead, and called it a season. It was later confirmed about 10 miles to the east, the game was everywhere. The game wardens in the area said they had never seen one storm push all the game out of the country overnight. I was home watching Dave P. and his story of the exact location I was at. Only a few months after I was hunting, this hiker just vanished. I about shit myself. I'm not sure if it anything at all or just my imagination playing tricks. Sorry to take up your time. Hope it helps in some way. Keep up the fight. Feel free to share my name and stay safe. Justin Dahl. Okay, Justin, I hope I didn't read that too awkwardly. It felt like I was reading awkward. But anyways, there you go. Another hunting guide, another member of the Club of No Return. Seen it, didn't ask for it. And is aware. I wonder if you're still here with us, following the channel. These are older emails that haven't been read yet. And if you are, I wonder if you've talked to many of your other guide friends who know and have seen. I'd like to hear from them or hear about it. Well, I wonder if I should close this down for a bit. You might be able to hear it, but my little partner is actually has little cute snores going on right down there. Much needed sleep. I need it too. She's been doing really, really good keeping up with me on the trail. Amazing. Amazing. There's so much I want to talk about when I turn the camera on. And believe me, every time I do this time of year, I'm biting my lip all the time. So much needs to be talked about. But we'll keep it. I'll try to keep it to the emails as much as I can until I get out of here, get back home, and get settled down. This has been a crazy, 3 months? July, August, September? Whew, non-stop. Just go, 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 go. Non-stop. Not complaining. Doing what I love to do, right? I think at times I'm trying to squeeze in 5 or 6 lifetimes in one, and I'm aware of it. I'm aware of it. The woods are so quiet. For all you elk hunters out there, these elk are not making a sound. Everything's on lockdown. I got a small bull that keeps sleeping in front of one of my trail cameras non-stop. It's the weirdest thing. He goes there and he just lays down in front of my camera at nighttime. The same calf and cow. Another cow who comes in and visits that same little spot, and there's a great big 6-point that comes in now and then. I'm trying to find him. And another 6-point on another separate zone. But so anyways, all I have been able to do is deer hunt them. Oh, trying different approaches through the thick timber, following different game trails, wind in the face, slow as a snail. That's all I can do. Trying to cow call now and then because they're not bugling, so I'm not going to bugle. Just doing cow calls. They'll happen. It's just that long, drawn-out grind that you have to throw down to make it happen. Whew. Anyway, share my story, howtohunt.com. Get your truth shared. Get your truth sent in. Some crazy shit's going on in the world right now. Warships heading over the Middle East. World War III is about to kick off. It's ridiculous. Actually saw a clip the other night. I'm done with the emails, by the way. But I saw a clip the other night. It was such a great example of what's going on today. There's a United Nations meeting. I guess one of the leaders of one country was standing up saying how ridiculous it was that there was a war on the go, how ridiculous it was that people were actually promoting the war and promoting the war to keep going, spoke against promoting war and wanted to promote peace, and they actually chopped off his mic. And then a woman started scolding him, saying how they're going to support the Ukraine and the Ukrainian people, and they're going to support democracy and freedom of speech. She actually said that right after they chopped off the guy's microphone. The United Nations gathering. The man was trying to promote peace and talking peace, and they took his microphone away and scolded him seeing how they were in the position of promoting and securing democracy and freedom of speech for all Ukrainians. That was the sentence she said after they took away his freedom of speech. Oh my God. Anyway, I'm really tired. I shouldn't be babbling about this right now. I'm going to get moving, but there's a lot of very, very alarming things going on in the world today. I really, really, truly hope the psychopaths who are pulling the trigger on all these wars do not provoke the button to be pushed, because I'm having fun right now. I want to continue to live and experience all this beauty, the real world, share it with loved ones, help people, talk to people, help people get better, enjoy life. I'm going to be really, really angry if that small group of psychopaths hits the button and ruins everything. Aren't you? They got to be stopped. They got to be stopped. Anyway, share my story at howtohunt.com. I'll be back tomorrow, hopefully with a great big elk.